But, these funny stories and these experiences led you to becoming, a chief master sergeant and doing all this other stuff and then making this connection with Will. But throughout this entire thing, there's this thread of, I wanted to help. I wanted to be a first sergeant. I wanted to take care of the enlisted guys. So of course, in 2020, when Project One Vet at a Time popped up, and you had this great relationship with a great guy, CM, who we've had on the podcast and talked to a bunch of times outside of it. When it came time for you to be of service going in, of course, that's why you said yes. It was the right people. It's the right mission. And that's what Project One Vet at a Time is. Can you lay out exactly what Project One Vet at a Time's mission is and what you guys have been doing, from 2020 on, and what's the goal?
So what, obviously the goal is to help as many veterans and active duty folks as we can as they transition into the civilian sector with their Department of Veterans Affairs. We don't like to say disability because I don't feel like I'm disabled. Aaron, probably don't, there's some disability there. We can tell just by looking at you, buddy. But
yes,
there's some
that's not service. That's not service connected. First of all, that's mean. All right. I've always been this way.
It's Ohio connected.
It's Ohio connected. First of all, and second of all, I didn't claim it, smarty pants. And you know that. So yep. I kept the previous problems off the sheet to stay clean.
That's good. That's good. It's nice to be able to separate your going in issues with your service connected issues. But we're one of those agencies that wants to help out people with their VA compensation and pension. So Scott Zastro, who's another guy, again, didn't know who this guy was either until I got involved with Project One Vet at a Time, and he's our medical consultant. But Scott Zastro, gives the analogy of the branch of service that you were attached to rented you for a certain period of time. Either it was 4 years, 6 years, in my case, 30 years, what have you. And during that time, you suffered some dings and dents along the way. You were a rental vehicle. You did the walk around in 1989. You did the walk around when I was 19 years old, and there was nothing wrong with me, I thought. But after 30 years, and the 30 years of the Air Force making me run when I'm not a runner, save a few of those years where we were just on the bike, which I was happy with. It takes its toll. And so what we try to do at POVAT is help our referred veterans get the VA compensation and pension that they've earned and deserve. And it should be at no cost to them. They should not have to go hire an attorney to get what they've earned and deserve. They should not have to, fight with the VA because they don't understand the process to get what they've earned and deserve. Again, a lot of our time in the military is spent following guidelines, following instructions, following, guidance from, the command element. But when you transition out, it's not there. You don't know what to do. And that's, consistently why we talk about having referred veterans. So this thing started with Will, and what he went through. But Will knew other people that were going through the same thing. So Will, referred the first clients to what was then, Project One Vet at a Time. That wasn't even a Project One Vet at a Time. He just knew that there was other folks that needed help. And so in 2019, he on a shoestring budget, referred 5 guys that were going through the same issue, and fought for them to get the compensation and pension rating that they earned and deserve. And that's what he did in 2019. And in 2020, again, I had retired in 2019, and he was like, hey, I need some help with this thing because there's more people out there that we need to help. And I'm like, okay, so I moved. Amy and I are in Bradenton, Florida. Will's in Parrish. He's about 15 minutes down the road. So we used Will and Charity's real estate agent. We came down here. We looked around the neighborhood. We found this lovely house here in Bradenton, and we sat down in what is now our home office, and we started working with Will to get this thing off the ground in 2020.
What? So with that, and you got like we've we're going to continue to have a love affair with POVAT, but what is another way that folks on the outside can help with POVAT?
So, just kind of understanding what we're doing, and visiting our website and our Instagram and our Facebook pages. We're all on LinkedIn, and just understanding what we're doing. There's a plethora of veterans who need assistance. We don't want, and this was a discussion that we all had, Doc, Mark, myself, Mark, Jeff, and Will, along with the other board members. We don't have the capability to help everyone, but we can help out those, and you keep hearing me talk about referred veterans. But it costs money to get people through our project. We don't want the veteran to pay a dime. Literally, we do not want them to pay a dime. If they have to go to FedEx or Kinko's or wherever to make copies of their records because they've got, they were back pre-1989 and they had hard copy records. They didn't have this electronic thing that you all have nowadays. They have to go and make copies of that and put it in a PDF and buy the thumb drive and plug it in and upload those files to us. We will pay. We'll reimburse them for that. All they have to do is send us a receipt, and we will reimburse them for that. Doctor's visits, co-pays, things of that nature to get their case where it needs to be so that it's properly substantiated. That all costs money. So we're in the business of raising awareness and raising revenue. And in order to get more people through the project, we have to have the revenue. So fundraising is something that we do all year long. If you go to our website at projectovat.org, you'll see, there's a donate button there. We hold, and we ask two things, and only two things from our veteran clients. And that's one, if you so desire, once the process is complete, once you've made it through the project, if you want to give us a testimonial about your experience, we would greatly appreciate it, because what that does for us is that gives us fodder to go at our donors and explain to them what difference this made in this individual's life. And the second thing, and the most important thing that a veteran owes us, is the name of the next guy. That's where the referral comes in. The referrals, it consistently grows. From 2019, 5 people, to last year, 2023, we had 65 people, to this year, we're shooting for 75. And I can tell you right now, we have 56 in the queue. So there's 56 folks in 2024 that we're already processing through the project. Again, that all costs money. And let me tell you that the money is well spent in donor dollars. And I'm going to put it into perspective for you, because I don't think, I know we couldn't have figured this out on our own, but there was a fundraiser that occurred where Will was asked the question, if I give you X amount of dollars, how many veterans can you help? And what is the return on that investment? And Will was like, the rest of us knuckle dragon folks were like, hateable. We all did that. We all did this. We're like, I have no idea. We just help people. We get them what they've earned and deserved, and everybody moves on. But it was a great question, and we had a person in a position, Jeff O'Hara, again, one of the co-founders of Project One Vet at a Time, in his capacity as trial lawyer, knows some people, and the Center for Forensic Economic Studies stepped up and graciously covered the cost of a study for us. And initially, they took 10 people. I think I ended up giving them, let me look here real quick. I ended up giving them initial 10 and then the subsequent 20 about. So about 30 case studies. So we took every one of these individuals has a life expectancy. As middle-aged white men, we have a certain amount of life we can expect to get out of this. If you're Latino, you get that. If you're, African American, you get that. All of these things. But there's a life expectancy. So if you're expected to live until you're 80 or 77 or whatever it is, from the day that you get your VA compensation and pension money inbound to your account, depending on when you filed and when you're going to die, is how much money you're going to get. So I can tell you that the average cost to put someone through the project is around $10,000. We can get some folks through at 5,500. We can get some folks through at 10. Some folks we end up spending 30. It just depends on what the case is. But the average, based on the Center for Forensic Economic Studies and the 30 cases that we gave them, is around $10,500. On that $10,500, if you take the average increased lifetime financial benefit to that veteran over his or her lifetime is going to get between $460,000 to $500,000. So as you sit there, Aaron, and you project that you're going to live until you're 80, the amount of money that you're going to get, depending on, the life you live and the quality that but, based on that, it's fair to say, and quite frankly, because you were an active duty guy when we took you on, and so that's a whole different realm. And I'm going to throw another number at you. So let's take the active duty guy, because I gave them one active duty guy because I was interested in the difference, because everybody up to this point have been veterans. So they've been out for a while. They felt like they were, shorted on their compensation pension rating. They wanted us to reevaluate. We reevaluated. They went from 20 to 60. They went from 60 to 100. Whatever that delta was, is where that 465,000 increased lifetime rating, increased lifetime income comes from. But if you're active duty and we get you the benefits delivered on discharge, the BDD, which is something that should happen if the individual is willing to put in the work, that amount jumps exponentially to over $1 million. So if you don't think you need your benefits delivered on discharge, I'll tell you, if you don't think you can spend $1 million between now and the time you die, then don't do it. But otherwise, you need to freaking get it done.
Nah, I can't. Don't need it. Don't want it.
Dude, don't need
Just
$1 million.
keep it.
Don't need
Just
$1
keep it.
million, dog. It's yeah.
Hey, Lyle, I've got to bounce because I've got a hard out.
Yep,
But
no worries.
I didn't want to leave without saying thank you for everything that you guys do, you and the team, and thanks for helping me and Trent and Aaron out. So
Absolutely. Again, it's been a pleasure to put a face with a name at this point. And I know where your case is, and I know that you're talking to Scott Sastro. You're in good hands, and
I know.
Again, he's all about the regs, and he knows them inside and out.
He does.
And the advice that he gives you on what you need to do, you need to take to heart. He's the real deal, and he's the reason that you all are going to get to where you need to be.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time, Lyle. I'll bounce. Enjoy the rest of the conversation.
All right. Thanks, Peaches.
See you, Peach. Some of the stuff that we struggle with, though, and I kind of want to hear your thoughts on it, is there's this feeling among veterans, especially among the special operations community, that you compare yourself to somebody like Will Markham. You compare yourself to these giants that have gone before you. And the nagging voice in the back of your head goes, hold on. Yes, I'm injured. Yes, I deal with daily pain. Yes, I have these things that I think I should be compensated for, because really, if I wasn't in the Air Force, I wouldn't have TBIs, because I got TBIs from falling away from blasts and falling off of things and getting my bell rung and whatever, right? Like, there is something that's in the back of my head and Trent's head and Peach's head, because we've talked about it, and I'm sure other vets, I won't speak for them, but you compare yourself to somebody and you say, well, that's what somebody that's really, this person that lost both of their legs, they're really disabled. I am not disabled. And you have this really hard time of getting there. And that was honestly one of the biggest things that Scott did for me, is he sat down and he's like, listen, idiot, I know you feel this way, but that's not valid. Like you are discounting yourself, and you are gatekeeping essentially this rating for what you earned for yourself. I have to imagine that other vets that come to POVAT feel that way. What would you say to those folks that are having those feelings to get them to engage and to get them to actually get compensated what they're worth?
So that's a great point, Aaron, and I hear it all the time. I can't tell you again, since 2019 to present, there's 218 people within Project OVAT, and 200 of them are probably of the same mindset because they've all been referred, and they're all, most of them are special operators, and again, it goes back to being the quiet professional. And you don't want to be the guy that identifies, hey, I need to go to the doc because my knee hurts. You don't want to be the guy that identifies that he's got some psychological stressors that he's dealing with because he doesn't want to be off the teams. But you need to be considered for your VA compensation and pension rating on your own merits. And I cannot more plainly put it than my own experience. And I will tell you that for me, as I'll say a paralegal in an office job. Yes, I did time on the flight line. Yes, I did. So my hearing's not what it's supposed to be because of that. But most of my time was in an office as a paralegal, as a first sergeant, as a station chief of the Defense Careers Service. Those things caused my own psychological stressors. My psychological stressors are mine. I'm not going to compare them to yours. I'm not going to compare them to Will's. I'm not going to compare them to anybody else's because I know what they are. And then again, if it had not been, so here's the thing about us folks that get a little long in the tooth in the military branches, and we see the amputee that clearly has a disability that we're like, dude, that dude needs the money more than I do. It's not about he needs the money more than you do. It's about you're entitled to your own amount. And what is that amount? We don't promise you that we're going to get you to a certain percentage. We promise you that we're going to give you an honest look. And Scott has a number of cases where he's come back to me and said, "Wow, he's rated where he's supposed to be." And I'm like, okay. And that gives that veteran closure on something that he, for whatever reason, needs to address. Maybe he thinks he's entitled to more, but when we give him the honest and candid feedback that we do and say, you're rated appropriately, you're good to go. If things get worse and you think you warrant an increase further on down the road, you're always a member of the POVAT family. You could always call us back up and say, hey, you know what? That hip thing that I had that I didn't think was going to turn into anything, now I got to get a hip replacement. Is that gonna up my rating? Well, more than likely it is. So let's take a look at that now. So once you're a member of POVAT, you're always a member of POVAT. You can always come back. I'll tell you that it took me 28 years to figure out that I had some significant psychological stressors that occurred within my career. And it took my wife one morning walking out to the car as I was getting ready to leave to go to work. And I was sitting in my car in the garage getting ready to go, and I just couldn't go. I'm like, this is 28 years of my life that I've given to this country. And I've got some things that I need to get off my chest. And she tapped on the window. She like rolled it down. She's like, and I was not in a good headspace. She was like, wow, I don't know what's going on with you, but if you're not going to talk to me, you have got to talk to somebody. And I'm like, oh God. That just, bless her heart. We've been married for 28 years in June of this year. And, she's the one who can say those kinds of things to me and know what she's talking about. So I did what every airman, soldier, Marine should do, is go seek help. So I did. I was a 28-year Chief Master Sergeant. I went into the mental health. And I walked up to the counter and said, I need to talk to somebody. And she's like, okay. So he sent me to behavioral health. Okay. This is where the fun starts. So they sent me to behavioral health. And I went to behavioral health, and the young physician's assistant, or whoever she was, explained to me that, yes, clearly I had some things that I needed to work through. And she gave me an app on my phone and said, here are some breathing exercises that I would like you to do. And I was like, whew, my head just came off my shoulders. I was like, okay, again, I was a chief in the Air Force. I'm like, okay, I'll play this silly game. Again, having been a first sergeant, now I'm a chief, and now you're telling me to go do these breathing exercises on this freaking app that you're giving me. I got it. So I did it for a week, and then I picked up the phone and I called the mental health folks again. And luckily for me, another staff sergeant picked up the phone, and she was like, "How can I help you?" I'm like, "I think you can help me, but I was in there last week, and I was given some breathing exercises by your behavioral health person, and they ain't working. I didn't think they would work, but I figured I'd give them a shot. And so what I need from you, Staff Sergeant so-and-so, is for you to refer me to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. I don't care who, but I need that person to be versed in senior level leader problems. I don't need some young captain psych guy or gal who's never been exposed to anything in their career. I need someone who's used to dealing with some shit." And she's like, I got the right person. So she referred me to a psychologist that I spent the better part of a year with, unboxing everything that I had compartmentalized over my 28-year career. And things were happening towards the end of my career that were significant, life-changing events. We all have them. The significant life-changing events that were occurring to me was I was losing the stability of the United States Air Force and what it had brought me for 28 years. I knew I was having to retire in 2 more years. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know how that was going to look. And it frightened me. And the second pillar that unfortunately happened was my father passed away. But it's all happening at the same time. And I'm like, I'm having to deal with all this stuff. And I needed somebody to talk to. And she was very good. The psychologist was very good at talking to me and through me. And my boss, who was back at U.S. Transcom, Colonel Buente, Robert Buente, was very understanding in my weekly appointments. Sometimes, it was every other week I would go talk to her. He was very understanding in that's what I needed to do. And then, towards the end of it, she was like, have you ever thought about, taking medication for it? I'm like, whoa.
Yeah, our stories are remarkably the same. I'm hearing some of the words that you're saying, and I'm like, the first time that I went in and somebody looked at me and was just like, "Oh yeah, cool. No, I think you're having these problems. It's really going to have to, you're really going to have to do some work. But in the meantime, how about I give you these SSRIs? In the meantime, how about we get you on some, on a couple of chemicals to completely change the way your brain fires?" And I could not have run away faster from that recommendation.
And how many other people do that, Aaron? How many? I mean, it doesn't matter what rank you are. How many people? Right. How many people do that in the mental health community?
Well, it's not even just mental health. It's physical. Like when you talk about compartmentalizing, we all do that also with the physical side too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Not to take away from the mental side, but like I don't think about things like you talk to like Scott, right? And he's like, well, what about this? Like, does that hurt? I'm like, I don't know. I don't think about whether or not something hurts. Like I spent 20 years not thinking about it.
Convincing myself that I wasn't hurt, that I wasn't injured, that I wasn't sore, that I wasn't mentally failing, that I didn't have an alcohol problem. Right.
But you get somebody to be like, hey, can you actually feel your feet? I'm like, I don't know. Haven't thought about it.
Oh, I haven't yet. Oh, it's really weird that Scott, hilarious from Scott. He's like, hey, can you raise your shoulder over your head? And I was like, well, which one? And he was like, all right, listen here, idiot. So that's the fucking reason, Aaron. And I was just like, he's like, that's not normal. He was like, how much pain do you deal with every single day because of your injuries? And he goes, and I was like, I don't know, like a normal amount. He's like, Aaron, a normal amount is 0. Normal people don't have pain on a 4 every single day. That's not their baseline. Like half the time Scott was just like, you fucking idiot. That's not normal. And I honestly, I needed it. Like,
but it's normal for us who've been in and again, self-medicated with the Motrin that the doc was giving us. And we're like, yeah, of course I can do that. Nobody can tell me I can't.
Right. God forbid you tell me I can't.
Exactly. So again, I say that because my psychological stressors are far different than Aaron's, than Trent's, than Peach's, than Will's, than Scott's, than anybody else's. They're mine. I can tell you that as a paralegal, here's something that I'm gonna pull it up on my screen here real quick, because I heard this word on a recent retirement that I went to with a fellow paralegal, and apparently it's got a name. I never knew it had a name. Because
I think I know the word that you're about to say, and I'm excited. Does it start with an S?
Does it start with what?
Start with an S. Sierra.
No.
Oh, okay, go for it.
All right.
Hang on in here.
So I'm in a room with a bunch of paralegals, because one of my paralegal mentees is finally retiring. She had a great career, and she's moving on to the civilian sector. She's retiring as a chief. And I'm talking to these paralegals, and this term comes up, and I literally had to come home and look it up. So one of the paralegals says, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure I suffer from vicarious trauma." I'm like, "What? I've never heard that term." But when I went home and I looked it up, I'm going to read this because I think it's important to understand. Vicarious trauma is an occupational challenge for people working and volunteering in fields of victim services, law enforcement, emergency medical services, fire services, and other allied professions due to their continuous exposure to victims of trauma and violence. This work-related trauma exposure can occur from such experiences as listening to individual clients recount their victimization, looking at videos of exploited children, reviewing case files, hearing about or responding to the aftermath of violence and other traumatic events day after day, and responding to mass violence incidents that have resulted in numerous injuries and deaths. I can tell you, as a paralegal, having sat through a court-martial on a shaken baby case, where a senior airman was so mad at its 6-month-old because she wouldn't stop crying, that he shook her to death. And to watch the expert witness that we had on the stand take a doll and shake it, so basically a 6-month-old doll, and shake it with the level of violence that needed to occur to inflict the injuries that the dead baby had incurred, is something I'll never forget.
Mm-hmm.
That I didn't know what it was, but it's vicarious trauma, because I saw the doctor shake this doll so violently that I almost wanted to throw up, and I certainly wanted to go across the freaking rail in front of me and choke that dude out that had shaken its baby. It's just, it's my trauma. It's the stuff that I have to deal with. The number of sexual assaults that I had to interview. I mean, I lost count of the number of victims I've had to sit through victim interviews on. So it's your own stuff. You can't compare yourself to the guy or gal next to you, because you don't know what they've been through. You have no idea what they've been through. So to say, well, Jim got 90%, why am I only getting 70%? Well, because you have no idea. Jim's probably only telling you part of the story,
Mm-hmm.
part that he wants you to know about. He's not telling you the rest.
Yeah. And vice versa. And, hey, Jim got 90%. His story is way worse than mine. I only got 70%. That's what I deserve. Those are those two sides of the same coin. And everybody listening right now for, vicarious trauma, do you know where dark humor comes in the military, in the medical career field, in these career fields where, sometimes you have to make a joke about it, because if you don't, you'll literally go insane with all of the things that you're exposed to and that you're expected to deal with. As a young man, I remember going through my clinicals in Philly, and it was the first time, I'd done a little EMT work beforehand, but small town, taking people to like dialysis appointments and stuff, right? Like nothing serious.
Right.
I distinctly remember the first time I had to tell the family that they were going to die. Man, I was a student. I didn't know how to tell somebody they just lost their dad, their brother, their father. I had no clue how to do that. And that stayed with, I remember that conversation crystal clear, to today. Like, it wasn't my dad, it wasn't my brother, but I worked on him and he died. And then I had to tell that family, because quite honest, the little attending that was only 21 years old and had zero life experience was like, hey, special operator kid, you want to tell this guy that I assume that you have experience with this. You want to tell him that this guy's dead? And of course, me being who I am, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll fucking go have the talk with him. But that's a great description of vicarious trauma.
Yeah, and again, I didn't know that that's what it was called, but I knew that, my year with my psychologist, I went through all of the vicarious trauma that I had compartmentalized over the years, and it goes to suicides, it goes to cases that I've worked, it goes to houses that I visited where children are in conditions that they should not be in. It's looking at child porn because we've got people in the United States Air Force who feel that that's something that they're into. But those are all.
I'm really into wood chippers for those people, so that's tight. I'm glad we all have hobbies.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And so again, those are things. And Amy would always ask me when I came home from a hard day's work as a paralegal. She's like, "How did your day go?" And we had this understanding. If I told her my day went fine, that means she doesn't ask me anymore. Because in that stage of the case, I'm not allowed to talk about it as a paralegal. I can talk about it with my attorneys. I can talk about it with the victims. I can talk about it with fellow paralegals, but I cannot bring that stuff home. So when I said fine, she was like, okay, but she knew I had stuff going on. And then finally, when the case was over and done with, and, it was squared away, she'd ask me how my day was, and I would like, it was like, this is the case that I've been dealing with for the last 6 months, a year, however long it was. And this is why I had so many days where I was just totally out of it, because I had to deal with this freaking madness. So again, when Peach had asked me about comparing, you're comparing apples to oranges. You have no idea what the guy that's telling you that they're at 40%, again, he's telling you part of the story. The guy that's telling you he's at 100% TNP, he's telling you part of the story. There's no way he's telling you everything, because it's just, I expect our clients to tell Scott everything, because he's going to advise you on what the regulations say, and tell you again where you need to put emphasis. If you can lift one shoulder higher than the other, there's a reason for that. And when you raise your hand, if you have to think about it, like, I'm not putting up my right arm because I can't raise it, that's an issue. And so again, it's just kind of walking people through those kinds of things, and getting them to understand that we all have our own issues that we're dealing with, physical, mental, what have you.
Yeah. Well, and it has been great, and I know we were all talking about all the things that POVAT has provided for us, and Scott and you guys and everything. But now, as I am getting closer to like the end of the process, and it is my turn to put another name in the hat, like exactly how does that go? Like when I send them to you, like what can they expect? What's the onus on me to do what, and then what should they start bringing to the table and understand about what it means to be referred to POVAT by one of us?
Right. So what we ask of you at Trent as a referrer, is basically, again, and I'm going to put this out here. We all know that there are people that probably shouldn't be rated where they're rated, because they're quote unquote chasing the almighty dollar. They want to be, sent, and maybe they didn't have the exposure to the things that would get you to that amount. So they play the game. We don't want people who play games. We want people that are legitimately needing our assistance. And because we're a referral agency, we only get those individuals. That's what's beautiful about what we do, is we don't get the guy coming to us cold off the street corner saying, I think I need this, or I think I need that. We get a big brother or a big sister looking out for their fellow veterans saying, hey, these people helped me out, and I think you would do really good to talk to them for a little bit. So what we need from you, Trent, is basically, I'll send you essentially the 5 W's, the who, what, when, why, and where, kind of about your referral. And so what we want you to do is we want you to introduce that person to us via email, and have a conversation with that individual beforehand. Say, hey, these are the 5 W's that POVAT's going to want that POVAT wants going into this, and I'm going to make the introduction to you, to Lyle, and to Linda, and to Will. And so then you get on, email, and you shoot me an email with your, Joe Blow's, 5 W's, and say, hey, I'd like you to introduce you to Joe. He is one of my, fellow airmen who needs assistance, and I'd really appreciate it if you could help him out. And based on those 5 W's is our jumping off point. Is, we look at those and we say, okay, he meets the criteria. He's been referred by an individual who's already been through the process, and yes, we will help him out. And then we start them in the process, and we reach directly back out to them, and we say, hey, these are the things that we need you to do. Here's an intake form. Fill out our intake form. Give us a little bit more in-depth information from the 5 W's. You fill out that intake form, and then once we have that, then we turn you into an active case. And once you turn into an active case, then we're going to ask you for your medical records. We're going to ask you for, if you're already a veteran, we want your DD 214. There are certain other documents that we're going to want. But the moment that Joe goes radio silent on us and doesn't want to participate, I call Trent and say, hey, you remember your buddy Joe? I don't know what's up with him.
Get him. That's the first sergeant talking. That's like, hey, you better get your boy.
Radio silent on us, and I need you to engage. And that's what makes us good. It's because you're not going to refer someone who's not a hard charger, who doesn't want to do the right thing. You're going to refer the right people to us, and that's why we're so successful.
Well, and one of the things that, we're recently retired, so I have obviously still a bunch of buddies that are following me out the door, just like I followed other people out the door. At what point, how far out from retirement should I start getting these folks in touch with you? And I know it's probably case dependent. Like, I probably needed to get in touch with y'all way before I did, because I'm mostly not smart.
And who told you that, Trent? Who told you that for months? Yeah. Was it me and Peaches? Oh, it was me and Peaches. Oh, it was me in the process going, hey, Trent, you should have started earlier. I'm sorry. That's just a personal thing.
Scott's a very patient man. I'm just throwing it out.
Yes. And I will say, for full disclosure, Scott has not called me to tell me that you're an idiot. So that's good. Scott has not taken his time out to call me and be like, hey, Aaron, is Trent really functionally an idiot, or is he just playing a game?
Well, he got to know me, and he says it to my face. So.
Right.
Good.
He's very good at, he spends a lot of his time on the phone talking to a lot of veterans. We say one vet at a time, but we want you to feel, Aaron, like you were the only vet that we were paying attention to. Same thing with you, Trent. We want you to feel like you're the only, you're our family. We want you to feel like you're the only vet we're paying attention to. And Scott does a very good job of doing that and spending the time with you on the phone and walking you through the regulations and things that you should be thinking about.
Yeah. So the question, if I have a buddy that's like a year and a half, 2 years out, like if I refer them, are you guys gonna be like, let's wait until we make this active?
I would tell you that this is the paralegal in me. It depends. And you're right. It depends on how many issues this person has. If you know they've got a lot of issues, that's going to take quite some time to get through, whether it be physical and or psychological or both. Then we need more time. But a year out is good. So 12 months out is good. It's workable. We can start building, again, it's going to be on that individual to go to their PCM, to go to their mental health provider, to go to the appointments, to get the information documented. Because the thing that we're trying to do with the benefits delivered on discharge is make sure that your records are squared away before you get out, while you have access to care. And so when you go into the flight doc, or when you go into the mental health provider and you talk about these things, you talk about it coming from a place of knowledge and understanding about what you need to tell them to get the proper note added to your records, which the VA is then going to look at and say, yep, that makes sense. So I would tell you a year out is good. But if you got a lot of issues, like more than the average Joe, or you've been, hiding a lot of issues for a lot of years, you might need a little bit more time.
you wouldn't be transparent. Yeah. So, for reference on this one, I think I was referred about 9 months out from flash to bang. And I did have, I think I ended up claiming I think I had over 20 issues or something, 20 separate claims. They got approved, and there was a handful of others that they were like, oh, not service connected. I was like, well, that's weird. I did it on the job, but whatever, I'll take it. It was intense. Like, you really do. And my med records were completely screwed up. I wasn't honest and open with really any of my caregivers about the injuries that I had, because personally, I didn't want to be off the team. Yeah. I have a shoulder that's needed surgery for about 12 years. I have a torn labrum and a torn rotator cuff. I've never had it fixed. You know why? Because it's 7 months down, and I don't want to be off the mats, and I didn't want to be off the team. And now it's that left shoulder that, I'm one of those guys that doesn't oftentimes try to raise my left shoulder because it just doesn't work a whole lot. But, I was kind of that harder case, and Scott still found a way to make it happen in like 9 months, 8 months, which is crazy.
But he's a lot happier with me when I give him more time.
Exactly.
So,
yes.
So
right.
he's like, wow, I can't believe you sent this guy to me. Like, I'm like, dude, he needs help now. I'm sorry. That's what it is. And
that was a true statement. I did need the help, and Scott was there for me, and he still made it happen. He did tell me I was an idiot though, and he was right. So.
And so again, I'm gonna throw one more thing out there, and it's, again, something that we at POVAT are trying to figure out, and I think something that me, with my experience, has a vested interest in, and that, we are really, really good at helping out special operators, because Will and Scott walk the walk, they talk the talk, they understand it, and they understand not identifying issues you may have, and a lot of our referrals are special operators. What I know needs to be addressed from the amount of work that I did in the area are those who have suffered from sexual assault. And it's oftentimes the same mentality. Okay. I reported it. My command didn't do anything about it. I shut up. I went about my way. Okay. Or I didn't report it because I didn't want to be ostracized from the unit. Again, this is coming from a first sergeant who was with 2 flying units, and there were plenty of female loadmasters. Okay. So I know that there were issues that took place that were never reported. And those are tough cases to, number one, reopen so many years after the fact that they've happened, to get addressed, because you are warranted a VA compensation and pension rating for that psychological stressor. So it's in the same kind of realm as the special operator community, who don't like to identify as having physical or mental health ailments. But those, sexual assault survivors, from my experience as a paralegal and Linda's experience as a paralegal, we'd really like to help them out. But it's oftentimes a more difficult road to go down than it is for you guys, who clearly are able to identify, what missions you were a part of that inflicted the harm on your bodies and on your psyche.
But that's why you need someone too, right? Like, it's the same thing. You need someone to walk you through it, explain why it's important, and that you this is the way the process works, and you have to say something to get something, right? Or just to get recognized for the things that you've been through. So,
So I know we're going on 2 hours. I just got a couple more things, and then you can cut me off if you'd like.
Well, we're not going to. Trent has a hard out, so he's going to bounce, and you and I are going to figure it up. I had the most open schedule for today. So Trent, man, thanks. Love you, bro. We'll see you next time.
Take care, Trent. Good meeting you.
Finally get these two out of the way. You know what I mean, Lyle? Just two bros talking now. Thank goodness.
Now we're just chit-chatting.
Exactly. So, and I've got projectovat.org. I've got it pulled up right now. There's a big red donate button that's on the top there. So even if you're not a part of this, if you connect with it, if you like what Project One Vet at a Time is doing, go over to projectovat.org and use the donate button. Anything helps. Give $1, give $10, give $100, do whatever. One's ready in the team. We're going to make our own donations, and individually, because we are a part of this and we do love it. We owe you testimonials as well. So don't let me forget that. Keep us on track, and I'll own that. Is there any other way? You mentioned some other in-person events and some other things that you guys are running and you have on the horizon. So specifically about fundraising, is there another way that people can support if they're in the local area, or would you just prefer that they use the donate button?
So I think if you're on the website and you see the donate button, that's all well and good. But there's an upcoming events tab there as well. And if you go to the upcoming events, you'll see that the next event that we have is the Ironwood Golf Course in Sussex, Wisconsin, May 18th. I'm happy and thrilled to tell you that last year was the first year. Then we filled up 18 holes with golfers. Ironwood Golf Course has 27 holes available, and we've filled up all 27 holes this year with people who are interested in continuing to help us out. So where we have events in your area, they will show up in upcoming events. But the easiest way and the most impactful way is to donate.
Just via the donate button on the website, right?
Via the donate button on the website.
Yeah,
so
that's fantastic.
Yep.
Lyle, Rosine, I think it took me 2 hours, an hour and 59 minutes to figure out how to say your last name correctly, and I still own that. We're getting close to the end here. I can't speak highly enough to say thank you. You know, of the project, obviously, as somebody that's gone through it, and it benefited me as one of those guys that got benefits upon my retirement. The ink on my orders wasn't even dry on that 214 before I had a letter from the VA that takes care of me and my young family for the rest of my life. I can't put that into terms where I'm grateful enough, but also for your service. You know, as you went through a 30-year career as a chief master sergeant, and you answered that call again in 2019 and 2020 when you and Chief Markham, decided to get together and start this, not-for-profit. And for you to not take a paycheck, like, that's just a testament to your service. I quite frankly don't expect anything else from men of your caliber. Is there anything else you would like to hit about Project One Vet at a Time as we kind of close up here?
I like to hit on as we close out the family aspect of what we have going on. It's a very close-knit organization. Again, having met Linda back in the day, she was one of those paralegals who was our charger. And when she got ready to retire, I knew, much like me, she probably wasn't taking care of herself along the way because she was taking care of everybody else around her. First and foremost, we brought her into the project to get her benefits delivered on discharge. Of the 218 people that we have going through Project OVAT, just 10% of them are active duty. But I see that number moving up because it is so impactful for the remainder of their lives. It's an extremely important thing we're doing. I challenge other non-for-profits to be true non-for-profits and, not get such big salaries and maybe taking care of more people. Because if I had any way to do it, I would definitely take care of more people. But the quality that we deliver to our clients, to our veterans, is extremely important. And the family environment that we have and the ability for me to pick up the phone and talk to Scott, or go over to Will's house, or Amy and I to have conversations here, or to talk to Linda over the phone, or chat with her, or whatever the case might be. It is really a close-knit family, and something that we're extremely proud of. And something that we're even more proud of is introducing folks like you and Trent and Peaches to the family, and welcoming them in and letting them know that they're never going to be alone in this fight, that we will always be there with them. Again, as minute as it may seem, if anything, gets worse for you that you need for us to readdress, we certainly will. Patience is extremely important as a veteran. Patience is extremely important as an active duty member trying to get their benefits delivered on discharge. I can tell you that we have cases that we took on in 2020 that we are just now going in front of a VA judge on. So 4.5 years after we've taken on the case, we're still in the fight. We're still going to the hearings with our clients to make sure they get what they've earned and deserve, because they shouldn't have to go it alone, and they shouldn't have to pay a dime for something that they've earned and deserved. So I appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to hearing from your referrals as they come in. and getting that testimonial from you so that we can use you as a shining example of what we can do for young folks like you who are making the transition to the civilian sector, because it's a huge transition, one that shouldn't be taken lightly. You guys are knocking it out of the park with One's Ready, so best of luck to you guys too.
Well, we appreciate it. And the only reason we exist is to bring awareness to folks like you. So, we are here to get the word about Project OVAT out. So go to projectovat.org and check out everything that they're doing. Check out the upcoming events tab for the May event, and then make sure to check out the donate tab and consider donating if you can. I'd highly recommend it. And I would say, probably as a piece of advice, don't use me as a shining example. Pick somebody better, like use Peaches. Everybody loves Peaches.
Right. Everybody knows.
Probably.
Everybody loves. I'm calling him Peaches. It's just something about that.
It grows on you. On you. His last name's too hard to pronounce, and he becomes the peach after a little while. You're just like, oh, that's Peaches.
Rosin, raisin,
whatever. Call me whatever. You know what I mean? Exactly. Just don't call me late for dinner.
All right.
Lyle, brother, I appreciate it. Thanks for everything that you guys continue to do. Everybody else, go out there over to Project OVAT. So that's Project One Vet at a Time.org, and make sure you're donating, following what they do. And if you're an active duty service member and you think that you need a referral, man, hit us up in the DMs. We would love to talk to you about the goodness that they provide. Everybody else out there, train hard, have a good one. This is another edition of the One's Ready podcast in the books. See you next time.
Thanks, brother.